WSKT TV.
Sampurasun Sugengrao, Wanyong, Horace, hello guys, welcome back. How are you all? I hope you are always healthy and well, with abundant fortune. Still with us again on the WSKT TV channel. On this occasion, we will review the action film entitled Skyfall in 2012. This film actually lasts almost 2.5 hours, but we review with a shorter duration. This Skyfall film continues, Quantum of Solace 2008, where this film James Bond is a British eye agent who has great combat and analysis skills. In addition, James Bond is always armed with advanced tools. In this film, James Bond, played by Daniel Craig, must face an ex-MI6 agent named Silva, played by Javier Bardem, who holds a grudge against him, namely, this film is directed by Sam Mendes, and its actors such as Daniel Craig, Judi Dench, Javier Bardem, Ralph Fiennes. Let's take a look at the plot. Okay guys, let's check it out. The film opens with high tension. James Bond enters a dark and messy room. There he finds 2 agents who have died, while his friend Ronson is bleeding from a gunshot wound to the chest. Bond tries to help, but time is of no use. Even worse, the hard disk of the laptop containing the identity of the secret agent has been stolen. M, the leader of MI6, immediately gives a firm instruction. The hard disk must be retrieved again, no matter what. Bond rushes out, meets his friend, If Moneypenny, who is already waiting with a jeep. They immediately chase the perpetrator. The chase breaks the crowd of the city, causing the residents to panic. Car after car is attacked until Bond almost manages to stop the suspect. However, the criminal pulls out a gun, shoots a police officer, then runs away on a motor trail. Not to lose his hurry, Bond also steals the motor trail and chases along the narrow road to the roof of the resident's house. The scene continues to echo on the bridge, where the suspect jumps onto the fast-moving train. Bond, without hesitation, jumps after him. At the headquarters of MI6, M, who witnessed the operation from afar, is getting more and more anxious. As time went on, the target almost passed. Bond fights fiercely on top of the train. Even had the opportunity to use an excavator to chase the enemy who broke the train tracks. The fight became more brutal as they hit each other on the tracks, while the train slowly entered the tunnel. From a distance, Moneypenny was already prepared with a sniper rifle. But the problem was that Bond was too close to the target. Shoot now, too. Order M under pressure. Moneypenny released the shot, but the bullet missed the target, penetrated Bond's body. Agent 007 was also crushed and fell into the river. His body was lost in the riverbed. The screen was dark, a beginning that shook. The shot above the train not only shook Bond from his mission, but also dropped him into the river, swallowing his body until the world thought James Bond was dead. 3 months later, MI6 merged. In London, M was called to face Mallory, the head of the Security Intelligence Committee. From the meeting, it was revealed that the hard disk containing the identity of almost all NATO agents that infiltrated the World Terror Organization was a time bomb. The Prime Minister urged M to retire immediately, but he firmly refused. "I will not leave MI6 at its worst," he said, but the threat came sooner. That night, Tanner received a mysterious signal from the MI6 system. A message appeared on the screen. "Think on your sins." Shortly after, MI6 headquarters on the banks of the Thames River was hit by a terrible explosion. 6 people died, dozens injured. The world was in chaos.
Don't you recognize the car?
Meanwhile, far off the coast, James Bond, who was still drowning in his escape, drowned his pain with a hard drink and poison. However, the news of the MI6 explosion on CNN made him realize it was time again. M was surprised when he found Bond sitting at home waiting for him. Their meeting was cold. Bond was disappointed because M ordered a shot that almost ended his life. Meanwhile, M was disappointed because Bond chose to hide without news. Although both were heartbroken, they knew MI6 needed him again. However, it was not easy to get back to work. Bond had to run a series of tests at the new MI6 headquarters hidden underground. Physical tests made him tired, total failure shooting tests, and the pain in his chest still lingered. In a psychological test, When he heard the last word, Skyfall, Bond chose to remain silent. After leaving Tanner and M, Bond received a bitter statement. M stated that he actually failed in the qualification test. However, time did not give him a chance to make up for his failure. Before flying to Shanghai, Bond was met with his new friend, a young and clever IT expert, Q. In a calm manner, Q handed Bond a sophisticated pistol that could only be fired through his fingertips and a small radio transmitter. A simple tool, but it could be a lifesaver. In Shanghai, Bond began the chase. He managed to track down Patrice's arrival schedule, the cruel payment killer on a secret mission. As soon as Patrice appeared at the airport, Bond immediately followed him to a skyscraper full of mysterious shadows. Patrice moved quickly. He shot a security guard to death without hesitation. Bond, although his body was not yet fully recovered, forced himself to chase. When Patrice got on the elevator, Bond jumped and stumbled under him with difficulty. Bond's breath was hoarse, sweat dripping. His long-awaited burden felt heavier, but his determination did not waver. From above the building, Patrice prepared a sniper weapon. His target, an important figure who was enjoying a rare painting. With calm, Patrice fired a precise shot to the target's head. For a moment, the room turned into a panic. Bond immediately rushed to trigger a fierce battle at a height. The shots and shadows of Shanghai's neon lights accompanied the deadly duel until Patrice finally fell from the building. His body struck the night dark without leaving a response to who he was working for. Bond could only hide his disappointment. But a sign was left, a metal coin depicting a dragon. With the writing of Macau carved on the side, a new step was opened. Meanwhile, M received a terrible message from a terrorist. 5 world-renowned intelligence agents will be executed. 1 a week. The cold message was closed with the phrase, "Remember your sins." Bond also moved to Macau. At his luxury hotel, he met Manny Penny, who brought a secret message. But Bond knew this game was layered. He suspected that Manny Penny could just be a bait. Even so, the mission still had to go on. With the dragon coin, Bond stepped into a glamorous casino. Glittering crystal lights, rolling dice sounds, and night music full of witchcraft accompanied it. Bond and Manny Penny pretended not to know each other, only communicating through a hidden microphone. When the coin was exchanged, Bond received a suitcase containing 4 million euros, a gift that was really a more dangerous game invitation. At the gambling table, Bond met a woman full of mystery, Severine. Her gaze contained fear but also strength. Bond, with his ability to read characters, immediately knew that behind his elegant gown was a Beretta 70 pistol. They had a short conversation, full of tension that was hidden in a thin smile. Severine knew who Bond was, knew that he was the one who killed Patrice, but he was also trapped in a dark circle, controlled by 3 brutal supervisors and a leader he hated. Bond, with his cold words, convinced Severine that he could free him. With a trembling voice, Severine finally gave the signal. Chimera, North Dragon, Num 7. An hour later, he would be there waiting for Bond if he managed to survive. But shortly after that, 3 of Severine's supervisors attacked. A brutal battle broke out in the casino to the Komodo cage. One of the supervisors managed to snatch Bond's pistol, but in vain. The weapon could only be used by its original owner. With his own speed and cunning, Bond turned the situation around. The supervisors fell one by one, while the Komodo became a silent witness behind the darkness. Bond stood firm again. The adventure to the secret of the Dalang had just begun. On the other side, M met Mallory. With a serious face, M explained that the Dalang behind this attack was not a stranger, but someone who used to be on their side. He was like Bond. M replied with a shrill tone. Mallory responded cynically. That position was not official, not recorded, just an imagination. The next day, Bond and Severine fell into a trap. They were caught and taken to a remote island, which had long been abandoned by its inhabitants because it was considered a chemical weapon. With his hands curled up, Bond quietly activated a mini radio broadcast. This was the only way for Q and the MI6 headquarters to track his whereabouts. On the island, Bond was separated from Severine. He was taken to a dark room full of wire nets and blinking screens. From behind the darkness, a man in a flamboyant look appeared with pale hair and a cold smile. Raul Silva was not a stranger to MI6. He was once M's agent, until he was finally betrayed and disguised as a cyber terrorist, however. Everything M said to Mallory is now answered. The biggest enemy does come from the inside. That is why the MI6 system can be cracked so easily. Silva knew Bond deeper than expected. He knew Bond failed the test only because of M's value for Rilo. With a smile, Silva tried to break Bond's mental. He matched their fate. I was also once worshipped by M, then thrown away just like that. Believe me, he only took advantage of you like he took advantage of me. Silva offered an alliance, a power without limits through the cyber network he controlled. From that island, he could destroy the world. Bond just stared coldly. The temptation was rejected raw. Silva then showed his brutal side. Severin was brought in, a bald man with his hands tied. A glass was placed on his head. Silva forced Bond to shoot. With a trembling hand, Bond deliberately slipped. Silva, while smiling, took the gun, and without hesitation, shot Severin dead in front of Bond. Bond's amour exploded. He fought Silva's children in a fierce battle, knocking them down one by one until only Silva was left. But before Bond could swallow, MI6 troops arrived and captured Silva's lifelong betrayer. Silva was buried at MI6 headquarters in a high-security cell.
M came to meet him. The meeting turned into a personal trial full of revenge.
Silva recalled the 5 months of torture he suffered after being caught by the enemy.
Hold a radio.
When M chose to cover him for political reasons in that bitterness, he tried to kill himself with cyanide capsules on his teeth. But the capsules were broken. The poison just pierced his face, leaving a terrible wound that he showed to MM. With a sense of guilt mixed with tension, he went to attend an intelligence investigation with the minister. Meanwhile, Bond collaborated with Q to dismantle the contents of Silva's computer. His true identity was revealed. Tiago Rodriguez, a brilliant agent who went too far beyond his training. He used to crack the Chinese network, until in a peaceful vote, M handed him over as a puppet. When Q tried to crack it back, a brain war began. Silva had already planned a trap. As soon as one keyword was successfully opened, the entire security system of MISM collapsed. The electronic doors opened automatically and the siren sounded. And on the monitor, an old train line to Grand Borough appeared as the next target. Bond just realized that Silva was not the detainee, but DeLange, who had written the scenario himself. Realizing the big trap, Bond immediately ran to Silva's detention room. But too late, the cell was empty. Silva managed to escape through the underground tunnel he had prepared long before. Bond chased, but the access door of the room was tightly locked. Meanwhile, the sound of the train was getting closer. Quickly, Bond shot the key, forcing the door to open, then ran through the darkness of the room before the train crossed and hit the track. On the other hand, Silva had changed into a police uniform. With his slipper, he sneaked into the middle of the crowd of the city. Bond asked Q for help to stop him. Q finally found Silva on top of the train. Without hesitation, Bond jumped into the fast-moving train. He jumped into the chase. Silva knew Bond was chasing him. He ran through the underground tunnel that had been set up by the detonator. As Bond was about to catch him, Silva pressed the detonator button. A terrible explosion shook the room. Bond almost collapsed when a train was drifting towards him. However, with extraordinary reflexes, Bond managed to escape death once again. Meanwhile, M was in an official meeting with the minister and the committee. He firmly expressed his concern that his true enemy was no longer far, but so close like a shadow. However, his words came true when Silva broke in. With an automatic weapon, he fired a brutal shot, killing many people in the room. At that moment, M was trapped in a mess, almost becoming a victim. Bond arrived just in time to pull M out of that hell, even though Silva escaped once again. This time, Bond knew he had to close the game in a different way, making M a hostage. They got into the classic car of Aston Martin de Bavia, heading to Scotlandia, the birthplace of Bond. There, they were greeted by Kincaid, the caretaker of Bond's house since he was a child. Together, they prepared an emergency defense with old weapons and handcuffs. One night, Silva's troops came to attack. A fierce battle broke out. Bond fired from behind the car, killing several of Silva's children. But a bigger threat arose. A fighter helicopter raided the old man's house with bullets and rockets. Bond's house was on fire. Fire spread to all sides. Bond forced M and Kincaid to enter the hole under the ground to save themselves, while he himself resisted installing gas tanks and explosives. The big explosion destroyed his childhood home, crushing Silva's troops. But Silva survived with his 2 guards. The battle continued on the edge of the frozen lake. Bond was trapped under ice after fighting with one of Silva's children. In a critical condition, he managed to turn the situation around, drowning his opponent in the cold water. Silva thought Bond was dead. Without hesitation, Silva moved towards M, who was badly injured. In an old car, he pointed a pistol, knelt beside M, and with a voice full of obsession, begged them to end their lives together. The wound was too severe. On Bond's lap, he breathed his last. For the first time, Bond bowed his head, losing not only his leader but also a mother figure. In the dark sky of Scotland, the saga Skyfall finally reached, full of blood, betrayal, and sacrifice. After M's death, Bond returned to London with a heavy heart. But on his table, he found a small package with the last gift from M inside. There was a brief letter and a personal item that became a symbol of trust and M's confession to Bond. The gift was not just a memory, but a reminder that Bond had been an agent he depended on until the end of his life. Shortly after, Bond was called to MI6 headquarters. There he met Garrett Mallory, who is now officially replacing M. Since then, Mallory will be known to Bond only with one letter, M with a stern look. M, who just looked at Bond, then said briefly, "Are you ready to go back to work?" Bond answered calmly, full of confidence always. The slow camera closed this emotional box. James Bond stood again on the front line. A lost agent but never collapsed. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching. See you in the next film review, which will be no less exciting. Adios, amigos.
Shadows fall, the silence breaks. Through the fire, a hero wakes. Secrets buried, scars untold. In the darkness, courage holds. When the night begins to call and the empire starts to fall, through the ashes he will stand. Fate is written in his hand. This is the Skyfall, where the past and future collide. Through the storm he will rise, no place left to hide. This is the Skyfall, every secret will ignite. From the ashes of it all, he will fight into the night. Broken trust, the light remain. Every loss becomes the flame. Through betrayal, through the pain, still the bond will not be chained. When the shadows start to crawl and the mighty towers fall, through the silence hear his name, 007 in the flame. This is the Skyfall, where the past and future collide. Through the storm he will rise, no place left to hide. This is the Skyfall, every secret will ignite. From the ashes of it all, he will fight into the night. Through the fire and the rain, he will never break, never fade. Every ghost, every scar, made him stronger than they are. This is the Skyfall, where the truth will never die. Through the chaos he survives, with the fire in his eyes. This is the Skyfall, where the dark